this mayonnaise is totally free of dairy and cholesterol, and we're doing this to reduce our risk of disease, heart disease specifically. And saturated fat in mayonnaise and eggs that's typically in mayonnaise is linked back to most diseases. So when we remove it out of the diet, we see reversal of disease as well as elimination of obesity. You can see my before picture here. I had heart disease. I struggled with obesity the majority of my life, and my mother and I both had this. We thought it was hereditary, but what we found that was hereditary was our diets. So when we changed over to a low-fat, whole foods, plant-based diet, this was the result. Without the addition of any exercise, the fat just fell off the body. And one of my mentors, Dr. McDougall, he has a center in Santa Rosa, California, and he was one of my educators through the new Cornell program that I took. And he says, the fat you eat is the fat you wear. And we found that through nutrition science, fat is readily stored as fat. So when we remove that out of the diet, we see reversal of disease, we see the cholesterol come down, reversal of heart disease, as well as reduction in body fat. You'll reach your ideal body weight if you're not including these fats and animal products in your diet without any struggle and without starvation. Because when we remove the fats, we increase the starches and the carbohydrates in the diet to make us feel nice and satisfied. So I want to talk a little bit about soy because we're using extra firm tofu in this recipe. I prefer this brand Soya tofu. It tends to be the creamiest brand I found on the market. Here in the United States we have access to this. I know some people, some viewers of mine, they are in Canada and can't find this brand. They actually cross the border to buy this because it's so good. So we're lucky to have this. What are some of the things that you've heard about soy? Anybody?
It has a lot of protein.
It has a lot of protein, so that's a positive one. It does. It's made from the soybean, so that's
Shouldn't have very little, if any, for cancer. Not good for cancer.
Okay, so the answer was you shouldn't have any or very little if you have cancer because it's not good for cancer. Any others?
I heard that it causes men to grow breasts, actually.
Okay. Yes, we've heard that it causes what some people call moobs, man boobs, but that's not true. So I would like to rebuild the soybeans reputation. I'm surprised there's not more of you here saying anti-soy because there's a huge anti-soy, people fearful of soy, like you're saying that if you have cancer you shouldn't include soy in your diet. And I want to clarify dietary misconceptions about soy while we're working with it today so everyone feels comfortable. I am criticized repeatedly for including soy in my protective diet recipes. I do a lot of YouTube videos, cooking demonstrations all over, and people are like, oh, why is she using soy? Oh, that ruined the whole recipe. Well, I want to go over the reasons why I purposely include about a cup of soy milk or a half a cup of tofu in my diet daily. It just happens naturally on a protective diet because we make tofu into a lot of different things like French onion dip, and we make it into interesting things. We're not eating bricks of tofu and drinking down straight soy milk. That's boring. We want to enjoy our food. So articles were published by the dairy industry to sabotage soy because of their profits being decreased when popularity raised in drinking soy milk versus dairy milk. So this fueled the whole soy sabotage, and people were fearful of it then. So there's epidemiologic studies that basically that's a study of populations and health patterns and to see what one community eats and what the effects are. So the studies show that reduced risk of breast cancer by 30% if you're eating and incorporating soy on a daily basis. Lowered risk of reoccurrence of breast cancer by 32%, reduced death by 29%, reduced prostate cancer risk by 26%. And these are all cited studies you can find on the American Cancer Foundation. So I don't know where that information is coming from that but it's common. I hear this repeatedly. So somewhere
From a
it's-
nutritionist.
from a nutritionist.
When I had my mastectomy.
Right, and there's a lot of health professionals and wellness centers that are anti-soy because they're getting their information from not the most reputable sources. There's no studies out there that correlate human cancer with soy consumption. There was one study that was done on laboratory rats where they injected them with cancer cells. They were the estrogen cancer cells, and they gave them soy isolate, which is the soy protein extracted from the soybean, and it showed to grow tumor cells. But those tumor cells may have grown without the addition of the soy. The results were different in human studies versus that one laboratory study. There's other laboratory studies on animals that don't show that result as well. So we do know that in populations in Asia and Asian women that are eating it long term, if it's included in the diet in adolescence, the breast cancer risk is greatly reduced in women. So I include soy, and another great resource to confirm this for you is Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. It's PCRM. If you just put that in the internet, Google it, you're going to get great health articles that have cited studies to reinforce this. So I encourage the consumption of unprocessed or minimally processed soy, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too. First, I'm going to open up this box, but I also want to mention why soy, the soybean, helps protect against cancer. It contains isoflavones, which are phytochemicals that are found in the soybean. And when we use tofu, we always drain out this liquid. This is just a preserving liquid. We don't use it in any recipes. We're going to break it up, and I'm using a high-speed blender. This is a Blend Tech that I love. This will grind up just about anything. And we're going to put it in there. That's our base of our mayonnaise. The isoflavones actually bind with the estrogen in our body or in the cancer cells or in our fat cells. A lot of people have heard if you are overweight, you're at higher risk for cancer. Well, that's because the estrogen is stored in the fat cells, and these phytochemicals actually counteract those estrogens in the fat cells. So it reduces your risk if you are overweight of getting cancer. So just to review, evidence to date indicates soy products may reduce the risk of breast cancer and reoccurrence with the addition of 1 cup of soy milk or ½ a cup of tofu a day. Avoid processed soy products like veggie burgers, fake meats, protein powders, protein bars, shakes, things like that that have soy isolate protein. It's an extracted protein. It's not the whole soybean made into a brick, basically. So in this mayonnaise, we're putting a tablespoon of chopped dried onion, 2 teaspoons of granulated garlic or powdered garlic, and sea salt is optional.
How much sea salt?
It's on the recipe.
Oh, okay.
It's up to you. A ½ a teaspoon, if you're eating a standard American diet, should probably be enough. Taste it and see. Or don't put any in, blend it, taste it, and see if you need to add the salt. I do mine without the salt. And then there is 2 tablespoons of filtered water, or tap water is fine. And we're just going to blend this up. here is our mayonnaise. And I just put mine in a jar. This mayonnaise doesn't have any preservatives in it, so it will only keep up to a week in your refrigerator. You want to smell it and taste it. If you add a little apple cider vinegar to this, this will help to preserve it, but then I don't care for the taste as much. So it's up to you. If you don't think you can get through this much, I suggest making the tuna salad or potato salad that's on the website, and then you can use this. This mayonnaise will get eaten up quickly. You could also make this into a salad dressing if you wanted to. Okay, then for our tuna salad, we're using a can of 15 ounces. If you want to cook your own in your pressure cooker at home, that's great. You want to use a cup and a half of chickpeas, or 1 can of chickpeas drained and rinsed. And we're going to mash these with a fork. Now if you're challenged with arthritis, you can put them right in your food processor and just pulse it. You won't have to go through this process. I made 4 batches of this for your samples today, so I didn't want to go through the process of mashing them all by hand with my fork, so I put them in the food processor, and you'll get the same texture. And this is going to have a really nice texture, almost like tuna fish. I get a lot of great feedbacks about the texture of this faux tuna salad just from pressing it with a fork. If I'm making 1 batch for myself or for Jerry and I use the fork just so I don't have to clean the food processor, because it doesn't take that long.
That's smart.
Yeah, I like 1 bowl dishes. I'm not a big fan of doing a lot of prep work and cleanup. I use 1 knife, 1 cutting board, 1 bowl, and sometimes we don't even bother with plates. We just eat right out of the bowl, putting it onto our crackers or onto lettuce leaves. I'm going to serve it that way for you today. Get more greens in our diet.
That's good.
Yeah. So does anyone have any questions about tofu or soy?
What was that brand of tofu again?
Nasoya, N-A. Oh, it's written on the recipe.
Is that
Yeah.
available in most grocery stores, that brand?
That
You know if it's
tofu?
available?
Yes, that tofu in our area here you can find at your regular grocery stores like Jewel, any of the regular grocery stores, Target, the ones that have the grocery section.
Why isn't regular
Tuna?
Wolf tuna, yeah, good for you.
Great
That's
question.
the impression it was.
Why can't we use regular tuna? Regular tuna, fish is one of the most heavily contaminated foods on our planet. Our seas are going to be completely fished out by 2050. This is proven in science, and it's documented by scientists that study the sea. So we're going to be out of tuna very shortly. 2 servings of sushi grade tuna a week can lead to mercury poisoning. So why are we consuming this? It's high in saturated fat, cholesterol. If we have high cholesterol or we have heart disease, we shouldn't be including any cholesterol or saturated fat in our diet to get those numbers down. Saturated fat breaks down our immune system. It's called the endothelium. That's the foundation of our immune system. Those cells we need to protect with everything we have. And if we're eating any foods that break down those cells, it's dangerous because we're exposed to things every day that those cells protect us from, as well as protecting us from heart disease. Breakdown of our endothelial cells, our immune system, contributes to 90% of all heart attacks. So when we have a break in that endothelial wall, they run through all our blood vessels and our lymph vessels in our body. When we have a little break because we've decided to eat tuna instead of chickpeas because of the saturated fat, and all of the toxins that are in the tuna, mercury is one of them, we are at risk of a heart attack. The cholesterol goes through that little break and causes a clot, and then the blood can't flow. And that's 90% of the time why heart attacks happen. And a heart attack in the United States, there is 2, what is the rate now? It just went up. It used to be 1 heart attack every minute. that resulted in death in the United States. Now it's
3 deaths from a heart attack every 2 minutes. So every 40 seconds, someone dies of a heart attack around the clock.
So every 40 seconds, someone dies of a heart attack in the United States. This is our #1 killer. Why are we eating things that break down our endothelium or that progress heart disease if we already have it? By the age of 10, children have the start of heart disease. I had heart disease in my 20s. So, and it all linked back to my diet. When I removed the cholesterol out of my diet, my cholesterol went from the 200s into, now it's 123 is my total cholesterol score. I'm heart attack proof. There's no way I'm gonna have a heart attack. So it just took dietary changes and a lot of research and going back to school and reading every plant-based doctor's book out there so that I could bring this information to you. And then I created recipes to make this exciting and livable. So are there any questions about heart disease or the endothelium or anything that I brought to you that was very new?
Is any fish causes this or just,
Any fish causes this.
why do they have people taking those fish oil tablets and all kinds of stuff?
Because they are selling products.
What was that question?
Why are they promoting fish oil? There's no scientific studies that show that fish oil helps reduce your risk of heart disease. So the addition of fish oil in your diet, I don't recommend it, nor does any of the leading plant-based doctors that are reversing heart disease. They're proposing this same diet and they are eliminating blockages and reversing heart disease and lowering cholesterol, reversing type 2 diabetes with this diet. So I don't recommend fish oil. It's a big marketing campaign. It's to sell product. So we're also adding a ½ a cup of this awesome plant-based mayonnaise. And we added a ½ a cup of diced celery, thank you. And we're going to add a little bit of onion, and that's optional. You can grate your onion in if you have little ones that can't stand pieces of onion, or you can chop it. Just dice it fine. So I've been practicing this diet and lifestyle for many years now, and Jerry as well, and it has brought us nothing but improved health, vitality, energy. I work with a lot of seniors that adopt this lifestyle and they slim down to their ideal body weight and reverse disease, and they get back into life. Their quality of life improves, their visits to their doctor decreases, their medication dependency decreases. It just takes an open mind and a little bit of change, and it's kind of fun in the kitchen to work with new ingredients that you know are only health promoting. Our seas are very toxic due to the runoff of fertilizers and pesticides from crops that are grown near the shore. And these fertilizers and pesticides are used in the crops that they grow for our livestock. So they're very strong fertilizers and pesticides. And they're getting into the sea as well as industry that dumps into the sea, oil. And anything that lives in the sea is taking on those toxins, especially the large fish like tuna. They're in the water longer, so they have a higher rate of mercury than the smaller fish like sardines. But the smaller fish still have that saturated fat that's a negative on the body, especially if we're trying to reverse developed disease. So that's our tuna fish. And you could serve this. I have woven wheats. These are a packaged cracker that I recommend that's from Whole Foods. All they contain is whole wheat. And you want to look for crackers that don't have a lot of added food additives, ingredients, and fats. These are baked, so these are great. You could also put this on corn tortillas or Ezekiel bread. That's another bread that I recommend. I have a bread that I make myself. That's a burger bun that we had in another cooking demo some of you tried. And Or you could put them just on top, put this on top of a salad with some brown rice and eat these as little lettuce boats.
What is Ezekiel bread?
Ezekiel, it's named after a verse in the Bible, but it's sprouted grain bread. And it's an organic bread you can find in your health food store freezer or Whole Foods. Fruitful Yield carries it. It's a very healthy bread. It's not very soft, but it makes for a great foundation toasted with this.
Does it have flour in it? Any kind of flour?
Yes, it's a wheat bread. That's another class we'll have about wheat.
Well, there are people in my family in my house that have celiac disease.
Oh, they do, okay. Yeah, true celiac disease. I would recommend, I have on my site, there's an oat flour flat bread. It's a recipe to make your own bread out using oat flour, and it's very clean. The breads on the market that are gluten-free all contain eggs, oil, and food additives. So they're not a really healthy alternative if you want to eat a protective diet and get optimal foods into your diet. I would recommend using alternative things like corn tortillas. Those would be a great addition to put this on. We eat a lot of corn tortillas ourselves on our diet. So the next recipe I'm going to cover is ruby red kraut. And you could make this using any color. You could use green cabbage. It doesn't have to be red, although the antioxidant value of red cabbage is super high. This is the most bang for your buck of any vegetable that you can buy in your grocery store. So I'm just removing the outer dirty leaves. For what this costs, what you're giving your body, eating this red cabbage cooked, raw, however you want to do it, I chop it up and add it to my salads. I just keep a wedge wrapped in plastic wrap, and it stays fresh. It's not going to wilt out like other lettuce. So what we're going to do is shred this. I'm going to use my food processor today, but you could do this by hand or using a mandolin if you've seen those. It's a slicer type gadget. It's very dangerous. You want to be careful with it.
I thought Gary had a new name, the mandolin. Put the man to work.
Yeah. You want to be careful with that if you're using it. So remove any dirty or torn or just not clean looking outer leaves. You want to work with clean hands when you're making sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is a fermented food, and it produces natural probiotics through the fermentation process that are found, it's called lacto-fermentation we're doing here. It has nothing to do with lactose or dairy, but it has that name. A lot of people ask me, is there milk in it because of the lacto name? But it's the oldest way of preserving vegetables that we know in history. And basically all you're doing is using salt. Now with this recipe, I got the salt down to the minimal amount by doing multiple tests over and over in my kitchen to still create the tart tang that the sauerkraut gets when it ferments using the salt. So other recipes that you'll find out there have a lot more salt than what I'm using today. So I'm putting this through my food processor, and if you're on the market for a food processor, this one I found at Costco. It's a great one. It's got a nice wide mouth. If you're suffering with arthritis, which is it's reversed on a protective diet because you're eliminating the inflammation in your body by eating alkaline, non-acidic foods. But until you get to that point, you might want to get one of these if you're having a hard time chopping. So I'm going to turn this on.
Wow.
It makes doing this kind of work really easy. I use my food processor the most for shredding cabbage or shredding potatoes. For hash browns, I make a lot of hash brown dishes. I make potato pancakes with this. And we just bake them differently. We don't use any oil. We bake them on parchment paper or silicone mats because we want to remove the fats out of your diet. Because the fat you eat is the fat you wear.
I can remember that.
So we're using about 3 pounds of cabbage, a little less than what we have here.
I love the way that machine works.
Yeah, it makes It makes it
Extra.
really easy.
Yeah.
But like for the chickpeas, you saw how fast it was for me to mash it with a fork, then I
Yeah.
don't have to clean this out. Rinsing cabbage out of the food processor, you don't even need to use soap, it just
Right.
rinses right out. Okay, so it's about one food processor's worth of cabbage is, what size was this one? This food processor, 12 cup?
Yeah.
It's about 12 cups of cabbage to fill this bowl for the amount of salt that we're using to create the brine. Move this out of the way so you can see.
You talk about fat being bad, but you have to have some fat in your diet, correct? I mean,
That's a great question. Do you have to have some fat in your diet? And the answer is yes, but not extracted fats. We get our fats in the form of whole foods. So all whole foods contain trace amounts of fats, just enough for you to absorb all of the vitamins and nutrients in that whole food. So take, for example, the chickpeas. Those have just the right amount of fat, protein to carbohydrate ratio for your body to utilize it properly. If we start mayonnaise, or even if we used what people think of as a healthy fat like olive oil onto our chickpeas or our salad, we're throwing that balance off completely, because olive oil is an extracted fat. So what they're doing is taking the olives and they're pressing them and leaving the fibrous shell with all the vitamins and nutrients in it behind, and we're eating 100% fat. And not just healthy fat. There's 13% saturated fat in olive oil. So when you get home, look at your olive oil bottle and you'll see 13% saturated fat and the rest of it 100% fat. So why are you eating this much extracted fat? It's not necessary in the diet. It's not good for us. So it causes all kinds of breakdown of those healthy endothelial cells, our protective cells, our immune system. It breaks them down and causes disease, especially with the saturated fat. So coconut oil, olive oil, corn oil, soybean oil, grapeseed oil, it's all 100% fat. Not one of those oils is better for you than the other. Not one of those oils is beneficial to your health. So we want to eliminate them. The marketing campaigns on olive oil have been the heart healthy, it's heart healthy. It's heart healthier than butter because it's lower in saturated fat, but it still has stuff in there that's not that great. They're putting it in place because we've gotten accustomed to cooking with oil. Well, I'm teaching you how to cook without oil so you don't have to use it anymore. That's the only reason we're putting oils in our diet, is to make cooking easier. It doesn't add flavor. Go home and take a tablespoon of your olive oil. Don't swallow it. Just taste it. Spit it out. It tastes medicinal. There is no addition to it. So,
how many grams of fat do you think you should get a day? With just doing cooking this way, how many grams of fat and carbohydrates should you get a day?
should you get a day? Well, it works out pretty perfectly. The diet is a starch-based diet, what humans are designed to eat. It produces optimal health if we eat this way. So that's how we know it's what we're designed to eat. Plus, our teeth are not in the form of a carnivore's teeth. And our digestive system runs this way, not this way. So like a dog's digestive system runs straight, and when they eat meat, it's eliminated quickly. Ours, if we're eating a diet filled with meat, it takes a man 5 days to eliminate one meal. So the dinner that he eats tonight will not be eliminated out of his body for 5 days if he's including animal products and saturated fat and meats. So we want it to pass in 1 day so that it keeps our digestive health and reduces our risk of colon cancer. Because colon cancer is from those products sitting in there, just rotting. So if we're eating a whole foods plant-based diet and we do a test and we eat a can of beets, we can tell in one 24-hour period our meal is eliminated, and that's what we want to do. That's why all healthy diets are promoting a high fiber diet. You don't have to add anything or count anything or measure anything on this diet. You eat until you're full and satisfied at every meal. No matter if you're eating 5 potatoes and that makes you feel full and satisfied, that's still going to fall under your calorie requirements. You can't really overdo anything. You don't have to measure. It happens perfectly in nature.
So you don't have an amount of carbohydrates or grams per day?
No,
to get, or-
there is no counting. Even with diabetics, there is no counting because the fiber content comes way up when you're eliminating those foods that have no fiber, like dairy and meat and oil. Those are very concentrated calorie foods, high in calories with zero fiber. So when we're eating this high fiber, we're going to be full. You eat a bunch of potatoes. A potato is about 150, 160 calories. I want you to eat about 500 calories 3 times a day. That's what we should be eating to sustain our energy for the day. And it's tough to get 500 calories in potatoes. You're going to walk away from the table full. And those potatoes, they include so many vitamins and nutrients that you're not getting in a chicken breast with vegetables. They have all the vitamin C, all the potassium, all the protein, carbohydrates that you need. So I'm adding the sea salt to my cabbage here. And it's a tablespoon plus a teaspoon to 3 pounds of cabbage.
Now you prefer sea salt over regular
You could use
iodized-
regular
Oh, okay.
salt.
But sea salt seems to have a little better flavor to it, or at least it makes you feel like you're getting salt, maybe?
Well, you could use any. They're all
Okay.
pretty much the same in the
Okay.
body. Sea salt is trendy.
Okay.
It's natural from the sea. They're actually evaporating seawater, and the salt is left.
suppressed.
So it does contain some iodine in it naturally, even if it's not iodized, because it comes from the sea. But you could use whatever salt you want. And you're just gonna, with very clean hands, I put on the gloves today, just to make sure. We want very clean jars that we're gonna make our sauerkraut in, the bowl, and our hands, because we don't want anything to develop in this fermentation process. Now, cabbage naturally contains probiotics in all the leaves. There's probiotics in all our fruits and vegetables. Cabbage has a high rate, and when we add the salt, it starts to produce, I don't know if you can see, like a liquid. And I want to kind of squeeze the cabbage to get this liquid to produce. Massage this for about a minute. I also have a cooking video for this on protectivediet.com. If you get confused and you're making this, you can watch it. It's just a couple minutes long. It'll remind you of what we did here, if the recipe isn't enough for you to follow. So we'll massage this, make sure the salt is evenly distributed, and what the salt does is make the cabbage produce liquid. Now, if the cabbage is, if it's this time of year, all the cabbage is coming fresh from the gardens. So it's very filled with moisture. Now, if you're buying a cabbage in the middle of the winter, it might have been stored since fall, so it might not contain as much liquid, and you might need to add some to your jar. And the recipe for that is on your recipe sheet. There's a ratio between water and salt. But this one is producing a lot of liquid. It's great. You massage this for about a minute, and then I want you to leave it for an hour. And that's going to produce even more liquid. But
Do
for
you
this,
wash the cabbage before you?
no, just peel the outer leaves. Cabbage is such a tightly wrapped vegetable that nothing will get in there. That's why I took off the outer leaves.
You
So
have
there's
spring and stuff, it won't get in there?
no, not inside. So then we're going to fill our jars. You could use any type of jars that you want to use. One that you could fit your hand in would be ideal. Because the key to this is packing the cabbage in really tight. And I'm using this little funnel just to make it a little neater, even though I'm not being that neat.
You the me.
And if you have kids or grandkids, they might want to do this project with you. It's kind of fun if you have them come stay for a weekend or something, or a week, because this takes about 7 days to fully develop. The fermenting, see all the liquid that's coming up?
Mm-hmm.
This is very important that we have that liquid. Without that liquid, we will get mold. So the natural probiotics that are on the cabbage are protecting the cabbage from molding and protecting the cabbage from going bad. We want to make sure there's no air bubbles, so we're really pressing it down. And you
Does
could
that little bit of salt mix out that liquid?
all that liquid. Did you ever make cucumber salad and you put salt on it and then you drain off the liquid and then you mix it with sour cream? I have a recipe like that using the tofu to replace the sour cream too, but and a soy yogurt that I make. But anyway, that
Who makes?
Yeah, Jerry makes the soy yogurt at our house.
That's right.
And that's usually how I get my serving of soy in. And then we'll fill the other one. And this is kind of neat. You can make this for your friends. So now you're just going to fill the other one the same way. I'll save you the watching me. And you see the liquid is up to the top. This is very important, and that you get any loose pieces in there. You could use a fork to press it down and really get it in. Usually the day after I make this, I take the lid off and I press it down again, because this is actually kind of a poor example, because in the bowl there's going to be a lot more water after an hour. So you'll see it will cover the surface of the cabbage. And
You have
then
to wait, how long do you have to wait to eat it?
4 days at minimum, because it takes 4 days to produce the probiotics, to multiply them. This currently contains probiotics, as all our vegetables do, for digestive health, just like yogurt contains. Same probiotic is found in sauerkraut. So what we're doing is letting it sit between 65 to 75 degrees, nothing warmer, so find a cool place in your house so that it doesn't mold, because the heat will make it mold, and let it sit there, not in a sunny window, just to be clear. We're using a paint strainer here that you buy at the hardware store. It's a 1-gallon paint strainer. It comes in a baggie like this. And I've cut this. You could use it whole if you don't want to cut it. I use it to strain rice milk. I have a recipe to make your own homemade plant-based milk. So I'm putting this over the top of a jar. If you're not using a canning jar that comes with these separate lids, you could use a rubber band and just put it on top. You want to have some airflow during the fermentation process, and the only reason I'm using this is to keep dust, or if you have a cat hair from getting in there or whatever. So we'll put the lid on and we'll let it rest. I love my sauerkraut at 7 days, and that's what this one is that you're going to sample today. And you could let it go 2 weeks. If you taste it and it's not tangy enough, the longer you leave it on the counter to ferment, the more tangier it will become. The tang tastes a lot like vinegar, but there's no vinegar in the sauerkraut. So this is raw, naturally fermented sauerkraut. There's many different versions you can make where you cook the cabbage, but I prefer this because it helps preserve more of the nutrients in the cabbage. And you could use half red cabbage and half green cabbage, and that will make a beautiful pink sauerkraut like I made here. This one, you see the color difference? Or you could just use white cabbage. Using the red cabbage definitely increases the antioxidants, and we need those antioxidants and phytochemicals to fight off free radicals that we're exposed to daily. From cleaning products that we are breathing in, just coming in this environment. I know they clean really well in here. I don't know what they're using to clean. At home, I use vinegar on my surfaces to cut down on toxins in my kitchen and in my bathroom. But most commercial buildings, they're using heavy-duty cleaners. We don't smell them because we're used to them. But antioxidants, free radicals help protect us against that, from secondhand smoke, from the sun, from foods we eat that we shouldn't be eating. So that's why we want to include these things in our diet. So if you want to help me do the samples, we'll get these out to you.
Please. So we got it.
Can you fit through?
Do you want littler ones? No, I think we'll be fine.
Okay. Any questions on any of it?
Could you use cheesecloth instead of that?
Yes, you could use anything that allows airflow. Thanks for bringing that up. You could use cheesecloth, or some people have nut bags if they strain things through. You could use a nylon, a clean nylon. You don't have to use the paint strainers. I just use them in my plant-based milk, so I have them in my kitchen handy. And sometimes I'll use a whole one like this, so I don't have to cut it.
But Julie's good about finding things that are cheap and functional. So
I'm all about, and these wash out really nice compared to the cheesecloth. I don't have a lot of uses for it in my kitchen. I tried to strain plant-based milks through it, and it's not fine enough. I also use these to make Greek soy yogurt. So I put the soy yogurt in there, and I put it in a jar and drain my yogurt to make it nice and thick. I use that in place of dips and thick salad dressings. Sorry. That's an idea of how I do it. That's the demonstration.
It's Friday, so
Thank
my
you.
brain's not quite.
That's all right. And then, oh, I should probably give you the sauerkraut now.
Eat some dip and your brain will be all right. Or some cabbage.
And some sleep.
Doesn't starches and pastas and all that turn into
Like
fat?
a fork or something.
Julie, she's
Yes.
got a question over here for you.
I said, doesn't starches and the carbohydrates turn into fat?
That's a great question, and
Well, the
no.
doctor says I got high cholesterol. Oh, don't eat too much pasta and all this, starches.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of doctors, they don't have a nutrition background, or we have to really look at it as it's not their job to teach us nutrition. They're not nutritionists. Most of them don't have any. There is no nutrition program in a doctor's education. It's an elective after. So he's probably getting a lot of his information where he can to help you, and he wants to help you. But nutritional science shows that carbohydrates are not readily stored as fat. They are used to fuel our muscles and our bodies for energy. And when we eat carbohydrates, the sugars in the blood are flowing, and they go into our muscles through our receptor that insulin helps put them through.
Yeah.
If you're not, are you type 2 diabetic?
I'm not that.
Okay, so your body's going to process the carbohydrates just perfectly as long as you're not eating them with fats. You want to get the fats out of your diet. If you're struggling with heart disease and you're struggling with excess body fat, take the fats out of the diet and you're going to see a dramatic reduction. I eat about a 1/4 pound of whole wheat pasta per serving. So if I get a bag of whole wheat pasta or a box of pasta, I divide that into 4 servings. Jerry generally eats about a 1/3 pound, and that makes him feel full and satisfied. But we're not topping it with fat sauces. I make a faux Alfredo sauce. It doesn't have any fat in it. A tomato cream sauce. It doesn't have any fat in it. A quick red sauce that you can make at home. It doesn't have any fat in it. And you're saving money making your own sauces versus buying the jarred sauces. But there are some jarred sauces in the grocery store that are free of fat that you can find on your shelf if you're not into cooking. And just keep in mind that is a dietary misconception that carbohydrates are stored as body fat. It's very difficult conversion. Our body is not designed to convert carbohydrates to fat, but it's designed to convert fat to fat very rapidly and easily. If you took a biopsy of a fat cell from my rear end, you can see what kind of fat is present in my diet, what I'm eating the most of. So if you did a biopsy on someone that eats fried chicken every Friday, their fat cell is probably, or just chicken, it's going to contain chicken fat. Or they eat olive oil on their salad every day, it's going to be olive oil. It doesn't have to change the molecule of fat to store it, it just drops it right over, like on your computer. You're saving it over there into your fat cells. That easy and that quick. If you're eating an excess amount of calories per meal and you have fat in that meal, you're not going to burn up that fat, you're going to store it. So it's quick. So cut the fat and you're going to produce some results, and then you can tell your doctor, hey, I tried this because the other thing wasn't working. Cutting the carbohydrates out of your diet, is that working for you? Have you noticed a change?
Whatever he says, whatever, you gotta cut down on this. I read some of Suzanne Summers'
Yes.
books, and that's why I never.
I did the Suzanne Summers diet then, and I was fat. I
And she
was
said
fat
you
on a
need
diet.
carbohydrates, but not just with meat and those
Right.
sauces.
What she's doing is food combining, so she's allowing for meals that are high in carbohydrate if you remove all the fats, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm doing. And then when you eat a high-fat meal, she's cutting out all the carbohydrates. So what she's doing is eliminating calories in order for your body to burn up that fat. But it's very hard for your body to burn up that fat. And I'm sure that the results are being produced because you're eating a lot of meals that are high in carb without fat. That's why her plan works for some people. But it doesn't work long-term, because she's still introducing those high-fat meals, because that's what appeals to us generally. That's what we can get at a restaurant easily. But if I tell you you can eat carbohydrates, potatoes, pasta, rice, every day at every meal, that's way more satisfying than some shrimp with a bunch of butter on it. That's not going to carry me over to the next meal. I'm going to be looking for something to eat. And that something I look for to eat is probably going to be a carbohydrate, because that's what my body needs to produce energy to get through my day. And it wasn't until I realized this and really trusted in it, because I was scared when I first did it. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm eating all this pasta, all these potatoes, I'm going to get even fatter than I already am. But it happened quick. The rate of weight loss is an average of 10 pounds a month until you reach your ideal body weight. And when you get about, within that 10-pound goal of your body weight, it starts to slow, but as long as you stick to plan, you're going to reach it. And the Dr. Esselstyn, one of my mentors, he's at the Cleveland Clinic, and he focuses on reversal of heart disease. He always says no one's ever disappeared on this plan, because a lot of men tend to get very thin, and they have to actually just eat more. So Jerry, he has to snack. He has to start his day with a very large pot of oatmeal, and then he snacks throughout the day. There's always something I put next to him while he's working on the computer that he's eating to keep up his body fat, because when we first started, he dropped down to 20 pounds less than he is today, and he's tall and slim already. He wasn't. When we first met, he was on a bike tour across the country, and he was 20 pounds heavier than he is today, and he was riding 100 miles a day for 6 months, but he was eating ice cream and pizza. So when he started eating a high starch, high carbohydrate, low fat, protective diet, it just shed, and now he's always eating, and he loves it, because we like to eat. I love to eat. I'm always eating.
I guess it was the Edmonds diet that they went to totally eliminate carbs, and then you heard other
Right,
stuff
and the
was
Atkins diet is bad for you. It causes heart disease. It's loaded with saturated fat. There was a diet trend book. Dr. Atkins died of a heart attack. So he did. And that's no big surprise. He was eating a diet to produce a heart attack. It was horrible. Meat and cancer.
Years ago, when on that high protein, you lose weight, but then you start eating normally again, so it comes right back.
Right.
You can lose the weight, but you're eating all.
So what does everyone think as they have a mouthful? They didn't try it yet.
Look at that, they serve the food in the color of their outfits. Is this
Yes.
classy?
It was subconscious.
Yeah, when we're eating a plant-based diet, it's beautiful food. It's very colorful. It's exciting on your plate. It's not boring yellow, brown, and white food like a standard American diet consists of. So what do you guys think of the tuna?
The mock tuna is excellent.
Oh,
Boy, that, I can't tell the difference.
Good.
That is
It
very
tastes like
good.
tuna? Yeah.
I never ate tofu.
Thank you, Julie.
All right.
Yay.
How's the sauerkraut? Did anyone try it?
Not yet. Very good.
Good, good.
Dig in on the tuna.
And a couple jars of this sauerkraut will cost you, what, about $1? Cabbage is on sale now. I found some cabbage for 49 cents a pound. I mean, it's in abundance. They've got to move it. It's the end of the season here in the Midwest. Of all the gardens, the cabbages are coming out like crazy now. That's what they're picking: pumpkins and cabbage. So this is definitely the time.
Something that tastes like fish just tastes like terrible.
You don't like fish? Well,
But there's no tuna in it.
I have to be honest. Did you eat it?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay. To be honest with you, I was never a fan of tuna. I hated the taste of the fishy can flavor, and yet I would make it because I thought it was good for me back then. I was overweight, and here I am eating this tuna, and I would put it with no mayonnaise because I knew that was bad. And I would force it down, and it never helped me reach my goals, but someone told me somewhere that tuna was good for me, so I continued to eat this. And now I love this. Like, we make one batch of this. This is perfect for 2 people. Even if you ate this yourself for lunch, it's fine. Because you're eating a can of chickpeas. These are loaded with everything you need. Your calcium, your iron, your protein, your carbohydrates, just like every single whole food that we eat is loaded with everything we need. If we take the cabbage, it has everything we need in it. There's no whole food that's lacking. So if we fill our belly with straight up potatoes and we don't eat anything else, we're getting everything we need. Or corn tortillas. I encourage you to eat leafy green vegetables. They're very health promoting. They help to produce nitric oxide to promote our endothelium. That's what promotes those protective cells, those leafy greens. So we put that on romaine lettuce today as boats. You could put it on collard greens. You could put it on anything you want. A mixed green salad, you could put a nice half the serving. Put it on top of that mixed green salad. Eat it with some corn tortillas if you're not doing the gluten. And very inexpensive. These are $1. Sometimes you can get them, these were organic and they were $1.19. You could get them for 69 cents, non-organic. They're still good for you. Don't get caught up in the organics if it's not in your budget. It's not going to make or break it. You're eating the antioxidants that are in these chickpeas are going to help you defend against any pesticides.
So if you put vinegar on it, treating the purpose, I guess, and like vinegar.
Does it taste like vinegar?
So
Yeah, the sauerkraut, it naturally ferments. In 7 days, it'll be that tangy taste of vinegar. It's the same thing when we ferment yogurt. When you make yogurt, we make it out of soy milk or dairy milk. They ferment it, and it produces these, or I'm sorry, they incubate it in a very low temperature, and it multiplies the probiotics in the yogurt and gives it a tang. Like yogurt has tang where milk normally wouldn't. Same thing's happening in this. We're looking for that tang. And you don't want to eat it before 4 days. You can taste it. I always taste it when it's sitting on the counter. I have to see how far it's gotten. And when it tastes where you like it, I want you to put it in the refrigerator with a real cap on it. That's the part I almost forgot. So put your real lid on it.
After 4 days.
No, after 1 week. After
Yeah,
4 days or
more.
more. And then refrigerate it. When you refrigerate it, it stops the fermentation process, preserves the probiotics in the sauerkraut, and it will keep in your refrigerator for a couple months. Now, if you make this sauerkraut, I want to mention, I put it in the recipes. If for some reason you get white mold on the top, it's a little off-putting. You wake up in the morning, you check your sauerkraut because you're excited, it's the first time making it, and you've got your little airflow top on it, and it gets that mold on there. Don't fear, because the natural probiotics are protecting the sauerkraut. Scoop it off and throw it away. And press it down. That just means that some cabbage was sticking out of the liquid. They sell little gadgets that you can buy to make sauerkraut that hold down the top if you want to get into that, but it's not necessary. I don't get the mold on the top of my sauerkraut anymore now that I know the key is to press it down, but when I did, I scraped it off, and as long as it didn't taste off, it was safe to eat. It's okay.
If
It's
you put
just a
some
little,
oil inside,
no oil.
no oil, oh.
The fat you eat is the fat you wear. Remember we talked about that?
So that keeps
To prevent the,
It's
2 months in the refrigerator. What were you saying? I'm sorry, the
no,
oil?
if, not to get this white, you can put
The
oil,
mold.
so the oil stops in the top
Right, she's recommending putting oil on the top to seal
to
it.
seal, yeah.
I wouldn't put oil in my body ever
Oh,
because
no?
it breaks
Oh.
down my immune system, my endothelial cells,
I see.
and it contributes to obesity. So when I
Oh.
took the oil out, my body fat reduced and my heart disease eliminated.
How
I
about
wasn't
putting
here from the beginning, I didn't
Okay.
know.
We do record this, and we'll have a link for it on the website if you want to watch the
Oh, okay,
beginning.
oh, good.
how about putting a drop or two of lemon or lime, which acts as a preservative?
I've never tried doing that. You could try it and see what happens. The natural probiotics in here will preserve this up to 2 months in your refrigerator with a sealed lid. So you don't have to add anything to it. The other option is on the recipe, you can add and make these exciting. If you go to Whole Foods grocery store, you'll see all the different sauerkrauts they have. And they have them in half the size of this jar, and they're about $6 to $8. They're very expensive. But they'll put things in there like apples, or carrots, or ginger, or garlic. I don't know if you're familiar with kimchi. It's like a spicy sauerkraut. It has chilies in it. You can make different variations on this, but I suggest starting out with your plain batch and then playing around.
For kimchi, you have to ferment even more, or
No, kimchi, about 7 days, it's
7
good.
days should.
And you're putting a really hot Korean chili powder in there. So when you're mixing it up, I'll have a recipe for that soon. I need to add it because I make it, but it's spicy. And you want to wear gloves because that chili powder, it burns.
Yeah,
What
that's
what I like most about this one is there is no vinegar.
Right, and it tastes like vinegar.
Yeah, it tastes
But
like
remember,
vinegar,
if you add a
but
little-
it doesn't have vinegar.
If you
Yeah.
add a little lemon or lime, it's going to change the tanginess
Yeah.
compared to the natural fermentation. So you just have to be sure if you add your lemon or lime that you know you're going to get a little different taste
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, it's going to be different.
A lot of people, kimchi doesn't go well with them because of high load of vinegar.
Yeah. I don't put any vinegar in my kimchi. I do it exactly the same
That's
way.
kimchi or different or
I hope Alan's getting ready to pass around some more tuna.
Are you Korean?
I use every day kimchi.
You do eat it?
Yeah.
Do you
every
make
day.
it yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife makes.
Yeah, it's when he goes, I don't know. It's always in the refrigerator. Yeah. It's delicious. The kimchi is a spicy fermented cabbage. It's like sauerkraut, but with just, they add ginger, garlic, and spicy chilies, Korean chilies, and then they also put, sometimes they put sugar and oil in it, but I made a version, I just left it out, and it tasted just as good, so.
When would you add, after the fermenting or before the carrots or whatever you want?
Oh, add it in the bowl. Add
Oh.
everything together and then do it.
And it
You
all
want to make
ferments
sure the
together.
majority is cabbage because the cabbage has more natural probiotics than the carrots and the apples and things like that. But yeah, and if you want to make traditional German sauerkraut, add caraway seeds. So just like to a batch this size, maybe 2 teaspoons of caraway seeds in with the salt and mix it, and it's going to give you that German sauerkraut.
Yeah.
So I like it on crackers. I love it with sliced tomatoes and bread and
You get the
tortillas.
same benefits if you like cook the cabbage or, I like, sweet and sour red cabbage like that. I know that you're adding anything else with it.
Yeah, sweet and sour red cabbage has a lot of sugar in it, and that's one thing I don't eat on a protective diet. It's not very good for us. So I don't know how I would make sweet and sour cabbage, but it's a good idea. I might work on that. I'm always taking recipe requests, so if you have any, let me know.
Now, if you were to cook the cabbage, wouldn't you lose a little bit of your
Yes.
benefits
Yeah.
because the
You
cooking
would
just
lose a
cooks
little
it out?
bit, especially if you're boiling the cabbage. If you notice when you boil red cabbage, it's a good way to see the difference. It'll come out and it'll be light pink. It won't be red anymore, and all that red is in the water. That's because you lost all those nutrients, those phytochemicals, those colors are very important that we eat them.
Or if you steamed it.
Yeah, you could steam the red
Steaming would be
cabbage,
good.
sure. I like to eat a little bit of raw and a little bit of cooked at every single meal. That way I know I get everything I need. It's not necessarily from the same vegetable, but we always have some raw veggies with our cooked veggies. It's like a dinner salad. It's that simple. You have that little salad of raw vegetables with your cooked veggies. It's great. Then you know you're getting a powerhouse of antioxidants from cooked and raw. We can eat a lot more cooked vegetables than we can raw as well, because they shrink down. Look at how much cabbage you could eat in the form of sauerkraut. I couldn't eat this bowl, or I couldn't even, well, maybe I could eat this bowl. I
You
couldn't
might be
eat-
able to.
I eat a lot
You're
of
used to it.
vegetables, but you see how it shrinks down, and because I didn't wait an hour, this is gonna go down to about half.
Mm.
So tomorrow I'm gonna press this down again, because I didn't give it the full hour to shrink. That's pretty much it.
I eat a lot of salads and stuff, but it's the stuff you add to the salad, the dressing and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's not good.
yeah.
Any
We
more
make a lot
questions,
of
anybody?
oil-free
What do you
dressings
feel is
too.
the best salad to buy? I mean, the best
Healthiest.
lettuce?
I would buy the mixed greens, because you're getting,
Romaine, spinach, that's what I
okay. I
Well,
would
it's called
buy-
mixed greens where it has several
You know
in the
one
same
in
package.
The clamshell box that has like all the different colored leaves in there, that would be your best choice because you're getting a little bit of everything. Now, if you don't like that salad because you're not a fan of all those different greens, go with the romaine lettuce. Don't skip salad just because you're not eating the best salad. When I make those mixed green salads, what I do is I don't particularly like these big leaves, and I work with a lot of children and trying to reverse obesity in children. So what I do is I take the mixed greens and I put them on my cutting board, and I take my knife and I chop up those mixed greens. They get really small, and then I mix them in with the romaine lettuce, and then they'll eat them. But they won't eat this big leaf that looks like you picked it up off the ground. It's got red veins in it. It looks like an oak leaf or something. They're not a fan. If you're a fan of those, eat them. And if you buy a big box of them and they look like, oh, I've got to eat this whole box by tomorrow because they're starting to wilt, cook them. You don't have to eat those raw. So if you want to throw a couple handfuls in your soup broth or some vegetable broth and make a soup with them, do it. Don't let them go to waste. Or if you can't get to them and they're starting to go bad, wrap them up and put them in the freezer and then just add them to your soups. I try to eat kale. I eat those mixed baby greens. I eat a lot of romaine lettuce because I love the freshness of it, and I chop it all together and eat it.
Julie, how about adding spinach? Is that?
Spinach is wonderful. If you like spinach salads, eat those. If you want to add spinach to your cooked pastas, that's a nice addition of greens that way.
What's the best kind of dressing?
One she makes.
Oil-free dressing. And on ProtectiveDiet.com you can find many oil-free dressings to choose from. We use everything from beans blended as a base to make it creamy, to chia seeds to thicken water bases of dressings in place of oil. We have a zesty Italian dressing that mimics those packets. I grew up on zesty Italian, the good seasons that you shook in the bottle. I wasn't going to live without that, so I came up with a version of it using chia seeds to thicken it. And now we can find chia seeds in almost any grocery store, it seems, or fruitful yield. And they're a great addition for energy to the diet.
All yogurt's good for you, there's so many on the market. And,
Are what good for you?
Yogurt.
Yogurt?
Yogurt.
I make my own yogurt.
Now they got the Greek yogurt, I think it's.
Yeah, Greek yogurt, it's not a good idea to incorporate dairy in your diet. They found a correlation. It's based on the China study, which was a book written by Dr. Campbell, that adding any form of dairy protein into the diet, Greek yogurt's high in dairy protein, you add that into the diet and you increase cancer cell growth. When dairy protein is removed out of the diet, it stops the cancer cell growth. So this has been proven in studies, so we don't include any dairy protein in our diet. Greek yogurt being good for you, that's a huge marketing campaign to sell Greek yogurt.
So any of the yogurt's not
No.
very good for you?
No, there's soy yogurts on the market, but a lot of them have added sugars. So I teach people how to make their own soy yogurt using plain soy milk. Unsweetened plain soy milk, all that's in there, and probiotics. So you can make your own if you really love yogurt, but most of my students live without yogurt until they find out that they can make cheese out of the homemade yogurt. And then when they find out they can make a faux mozzarella cheese not using any fat and they can eat as much as they want, they get a yogurt maker and they start making it. So
How do you get a husband
They
who
say
eats
if
meat
you
all the
have to
time
have
to
yogurt
go
with the
with this?
least amount of
Ask
added
Jerry.
ingredients.
I mean,
the
how
better.
would you?
How do I get a husband?
Yeah.
to do it?
Exactly.
Is that what you're asking?
How would I do, I mean, he's a vegan man.
What you would do is make food for him off the Protected Diet website, you know, or different recipes that are
Because he has
compliant.
diabetes.
Okay?
right, perfect.
They taste amazing. She specializes in comfort food favorites. So
You guys
this you've
have
already
it?
had.
Yes.
This is
Do you like
good.
it? Yes.
What kind of food does he like other than meat?
He just loves his meat and he loves his pastas.
Okay, well, there's plenty of, like, tomato cream sauce is one of Julie's most famous recipes. There's a lasagna on there, there's baked ziti. There's so many other recipes. We've got over 200 recipes on the website.
Okay.
123 of them are free recipes. The rest are premium recipes.
Okay.
But yeah, there's so much variety.
What if I've tried to, instead of making steaks, make a portobello mushroom and, you know, he doesn't like that.
Right, well, again, what I would do is give him what he does like, the different pastas, and talk to him about the ill health effects of eating meat.
I do.
Okay, well,
A
just,
lot of
very
times,
stubborn.
even
Okay.
if you just remove the dairy and the oils out of his diet to start off with, and feed him the cheesy scalloped potatoes.
Okay.
That's a man pleaser. That's a recipe. It's a free recipe on the site. I have not, I bring those to potlucks, like to introduce plant-based diet, or bring them to plant-based diet potlucks. And the guys that are at the potluck follow me around. They're like, "Are you sure my wife has that recipe?"
Really?
I'm like, "Yes, she has a recipe. It's online. It's free for anyone to use." It's a very hearty, creamy recipe, and it includes an ingredient that might be unusual to you. It's called nutritional yeast, and you can find this in the bulk bins at Whole Foods, or you can find it at Vitamin Shop in a can, or Fruitful Yield in a can.
All right.
And it looks like fish food. It's like flakes. I did a recipe here for the no-fat Natio cheese sauce using that. We make a cheese sauce out of canned pumpkin and this nutritional yeast. Well, the nutritional yeast, it's actually a dietary supplement of B12 vitamins. It's got a lot of B12, gives you energy, but it tastes cheesy and nutty, so we add it to things that we want to taste cheesy without putting the cheese.
Okay.
So there aren't any ingredients in my recipes that aren't health promoting as main ingredients, like the nutritional yeast. It actually is what has a benefit in your diet.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm gonna go online and check all that out.
Yeah, and have him look at the pictures of the recipes and say, "Can you pick out a couple of these side dishes?" Just call them side dishes, because that's what he's going to think they are. And serve them to him and say, "You know, if you didn't eat the meat, you could fill your whole plate with these potatoes." And he might be like, "Well, these are pretty good. I like these better."
I'll try that.
I find the carbohydrates in most meals are more attractive to me, even when I was eating meat. I didn't want a chicken breast. I ate it because I thought I needed to for my health, but it wasn't helping. So, actually in this picture I was vegan. I already went vegan in this picture.
Okay.
I decided to get all the animal products out of my diet, but I was still including oil and nuts. I removed the oil, the nuts, and the sugar, and I got this.
Okay.
So, I mean, the
So
animal
you
products,
can't eat any meat on this diet?
no meat,
No meat of any kind? Fish?
no.
Because what she used today was chickpeas instead of meat.
Oh.
So the chickpeas are
Did you try
your
the samples?
substitute.
Yes, it is. My husband is, he's type 2 diabetic, and he's never liked vegetables. Any vegetables, only thing he eats is like sauerkraut.
So
or
feed him potatoes.
And meat, well, he does eat potatoes.
Yeah, most people eat
But I
potatoes.
mean, he eats all that meat, that's practically all he lives on.
And
he's so
that
overweight
meat,
and
that meat
unhealthy.
is breaking down that immune system. The animal protein is raising his risk for cancer. The cholesterol found in that meat and saturated fat is putting him at high risk for heart disease. So removing that out of the diet will eliminate all of those challenges, even if he's not eating a ton of vegetables and he switches over to more potatoes. So some people you gotta do baby steps with. I do a 30-day detox program with my students, and we go full force day one because they want to produce results. And if you produce results in a 30-day period where you drop 10 pounds and your cholesterol comes down 30 points and your blood sugars regulate if you're type 2 diabetic, those are all significant things to happen in a 30-day period, switching over to a starch-based diet, to keep you going for the next 30 days. We have a support group on Facebook. This time ago. We have a support group on Facebook called Protective Diet Living, if anyone's on Facebook. And you can read all the testimonials of people, real people like me and Jerry, that are reversing disease with nutritional intervention. This is where it's at. The food we're putting in our body is causing disease. It's not because you were born to be diseased. That's a huge misconception. If that was true, then I would still have heart disease. Yes.
Another thing to help your husbands eat for their health. 2 simple, quick words. Erectile dysfunction. I'm serious. When the blood isn't flowing, things aren't going. That's just how it works. So And that's-
I don't usually talk about it because
Well-
everyone gets embarrassed when I'm talking about it. Glad you're bringing it up.
Okay, so that might be something to help them stop the meat because
eggs.
You
don't like good.
Saturated fat is very high in an egg, and studies showed the damaging health effects of 1 egg a day is equal to smoking 5 cigarettes a day. It's the same breakdown in the system. It's not going to cause lung cancer, but it's the same breakdown in the system. So that if you're going to eliminate anything out of your diet leaving here today, eggs, dairy, and oil. And then work on the meat with the guys. Start feeding them, introducing them. Say, you know what, I'm going to try some of these recipes. Don't tell them, hey, I'm doing this full-time 100% for 30 days and you're on a diet. Everyone's going to react badly to that. They didn't decide this. So just go home, make the cheesy scalloped potatoes or the oven fries or something like simple and just start serving them healthier side dishes and then working your way into
Start
it.
small and then.
If you wanted to go
Do you have
100% on it.
Netflix? Do you have Netflix?
Yes.
Watch Forks Over Knives. We'd like to have a screening of that here at this center, but it goes over the science behind everything that we're teaching.
Yeah, all of the
Forks
doctors
over
that are
knives.
forks
Right.
over knives. Write that down if you haven't seen that movie. Have you seen that movie? They've seen that movie.
It's
How did
choosing
that
the-
movie make you feel? Like, hey, I should be doing this?
We're gonna show it in
That's why we
January.
showed
You
All
are.
right, it'll be here in
Good.
January. Do you know what day?
No, not yet.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
Well, let me know.
Well, we'll do it right,
I'll
it's like the
questions
week,
if you
we'll
want.
probably do it the week before your cooking day.
Okay.
We'll do it on our movie day Monday.
How often do you do this here?
Once a month. As often as she wants me here. So if we can get more people in this room,
Julie will be here more.
I will be here more. But because the numbers are low for this, they can't see the hour. They can't schedule the hour for this. So
Tell your friends.
tell your friends to come with you. I mean, this is something that we can, if we have this tool in our pocket to reverse disease, knowing a lot of this is just ignorance. We haven't been taught this. Like, no one's teaching this. This doesn't make money. I'm not making money teaching eat your vegetables and combine them so they taste like fish. This is not something that doctors make money promoting. This is not something that industry makes money promoting. I mean, the chickpea industry is not advertising chickpeas. They promote health. They're just on the shelf. But beef is advertising that, what is their slogan? It does the body good. Oh, it's what's for dinner. Because you don't know to make mercury-free tuna salad. So, but I mean, this is free information for you guys. And if you have any friends, have them join you here. I'm trying to reach as many people as I can by doing these broadcasts, and we do multiple broadcasts in a week. This is not the only thing we're doing. So check out our site if you want more support, and the support groups are free. And we're traveling pretty much across the country in the next couple weeks doing talks at churches, Seventh-day Adventist churches. They promote a vegetarian diet. There's a community in California called Loma Linda. It's in that town. These people, there's a cardiologist there that's 100 years old. And he is doing surgeries because he's eating this diet. He is still able to work and help people. He is preaching this diet to get people off of his operating table. He wants to retire. But
Oh, that's not Dr. Oz, then?
no.
Doctor.
Dr. Oz is great. He helps a lot of people, but he sells a lot of products, and that's
that's
because
true.
he's part of a television network. And if he announced that you should eat a vegetarian diet, the McDonald's commercials that come on in between his show are going to stop advertising on his
Yeah, the
show. So
sponsors
he
are-
can't give you the facts and show you this is the cheapest way to eat, this is the easiest way to eat once you put it in practice.
He's advertising something.
Avocado's okay? Avocado?
I don't do avocado because of the high saturated fat content. And we do a guacamole that we use
Thank
chickpeas
you.
and spinach blended together as the base, so it's green and creamy. But then we eliminate the fat, because the fat we eat is the fat we wear. So we want to eat a very low fat diet.
And Emily and I can attest, we both made her faux guacamole with chickpeas. Fantastic.
Oh,
You would
good.
never know it wasn't really avocados in there. And if Kristen knows if we still have the postcards out front,
I
she
think
had,
we passed
she
out
had
the
the
rest of
recipe.
them.
Oh, honestly, I got rid of them at a
Okay.
fair. I didn't get rid of them, I gave them away.
I'll bring
Stuff in the
Jordan.
trash.
She has a great, it's on the website, I'm sure, it's a great faux guacamole that uses chickpeas and spinach. How healthy can you get? And then she also tells you how to make the chips, which I'm not sure what you call the chips again. Was
They're
it?
baked corn tortilla
Okay,
chips. So
right.
we're using
Both are free
Milagro corn
recipes.
tortillas
Yeah.
that you can find in any grocery store.
What kind
And
of
they are
quantity
terrific.
you would, prefer? What brand?
El Milagro.
El
El
Milagro.
Milagro.
That we find at.
They're in a paper packet at every grocery
Yeah,
store.
Yeah.
Jewel and.
Not,
If anybody, please have
one more
anybody would like
One more
extra.
question, yeah.
nuts, we also have nuts,
No.
almonds, nothing like that?
Correct,
Nuts,
no.
nothing.
No,
I think
not
it's
when you're
avocado.
reversing
Not
carbs.
concentrated fat.
No nuts,
One do I
no
can lose
sugar,
weight?
no nuts, no sugar, no oil.
I eat all of that.
The
One do I
saturated,
can lose weight?
But she can show you how to
This
put
soya.
plant-based to substitute for the nuts. The substitute, she knows how to give you the plant-based substitute, and that's what
the
makes
saturated
it
fat that you eat breaks down your endothelium, which is your defense system against disease, and your heart attack. So the more nuts you eat, the more prone you are to getting a heart attack. Does it make sense?
So far, we eat all of
Yes,
this.
I'll get some. Here, wait.
I'm real so organic.
Yeah,
exactly.
Would you like another
Because
sauerkraut?
I'm Italian. I eat everything, olive oil, nuts. Lots of oil.
Yeah.
I put the bread in.
Pasta. Actually, good, I'm glad. Say wherever Debbie went, she can't leave. I gotta ask her a question. And they're easy. This one does have some salt in it. This one's from It's the only baked cracker I can find without potatoes. Please.
Most of the stuff is all the
Yeah,
Would anyone else like some samples? There's enough here.
I would eat this.
My husband is here, but whatever.
Here's Maria. Maria.
He will come in.
Did you have fun?
What is that?
Good.
I was drinking